you will plateau on a GLP-1. We did. So here's what we did. We saw the writing on the wall, and we had many meetings over this. And I'm like, we sat down. We're like, look, we've never seen anything like this impact our space from a medical perspective or pharmaceutical perspective. We need to get ahead of this and communicate this in the right way, because a lot of people are going to cause problems. And there's going to be a lot of noise and misinformation. So we came out with a workout program. It barely sold because how many people are going to use it, but we wanted it to come out and we wanted to communicate it in the right way so that at least it's out. We came out with a workout program that was for people on a GLP-1.
Oh, interesting.
Because, when you drop your calories real low, there's a certain way you should exercise. You'll have low energy initially, and there's a lot that went into it. But we created this workout program. And then what we did is we took on a group of people that we coached. So myself, Adam, and Justin created a group of a little bit more than 50 people that we coached weekly who were on a GLP-1. Okay. Some of them had been on them for a while. Some of them had just started, and we wanted to work with them. And part of the reason was, let's see what the problems are that arise. What are the challenges? So it could help us communicate to this on the podcast. And what was interesting, first of all, a lot of the same problems you'll see with anybody who's, trying to diet or whatever, but there were some interesting issues like plateauing at very low calories. Like there were more than, I'm counting, I said 50, maybe 55 people in this group. I want to say off the top of my head, there were like 6 people who had lost a significant amount of weight because they had been on a GLP-1 for a couple of years, but had plateaued with like 20 or 30 pounds left. And they plateaued at eating 1,200 calories a day.
Wow.
So they're like, what do I do? That was their problem. All right, Sal, I track my food. I've been on a GLP-1 for 2 years. I lost 80 pounds or whatever. I have 25 pounds to go, or one woman had 30 pounds to go. One person had 15 pounds to go, but I'm eating like 1,200 calories. I had one woman who was eating less than 1,000 calories a day. She's like, I don't have any energy. Do I up my dose? I'm like, no, like you're going to go down below 1,000 calories to try to lose an extra 15 pounds.
Well, her NEATs probably plummeted.
Everything. And so it's like, what do we do with her? Well, we reverse dieted her, had her strength train. We built some muscle. And through that process, she increased her calories, got her metabolic rate to become healthier, for lack of a better term. And she started getting leaner again. But there's people are going to run into this. They're going to get on GLP-1, lose a bunch of weight, eat very little, and then go, where do I go from now? And my fear is they're going to say, up your dose. Here, let's just give you a higher dose so you eat even less. Like, by the way, if you look at the data on people who are obese versus people who are frail and underweight, you know who has worse outcomes? People who are frail and underweight. So it's not like this is better than that. It's actually worse. I'm not saying that's going to happen to everybody, but we need to be aware. So with GLP-1s, if we do it the right way and we only do it for the right people, because I'm also seeing a lot of this. I want to get in shape for the summer, so I went on tirzepatide, or bodybuilders now, pre-contest are using it, which is ridiculous.
Really?
Yeah, of course. They're going to use everything they can to. So I'm seeing some of that kind of stuff, and it's like, no, you don't want to do anything like that. We have people call in, which GLP-1 should I use? I want to lose 10 pounds. It's like, not a GLP-1. that's not the route for.
And how do they actually work, like subjectively? Like, is it just they kill your appetite, right?
Yeah. So Adam, being the great
biohacker that he is.
Yeah, just this partner that I have. He's like, I'm gonna go on one. He's not obese, right? He's like, I'm going to go on one. I'm going to go on the dose they recommend. I want to know what it feels like. And I'm not going to hack it with my trainer brain. In other words, I'm not going to try to like eat more protein and offset it. I'm just going to see what happens if I just go on one. And he's like, bro, he goes, there were days where I could eat 500 calories and I was fine. I mean, he's a big dude.
Wow.
And he lost weight. He also lost a lot of muscle. And he's like, yeah, we need to talk.
He lost a lot of muscle?
Of course.
Was he continuing to resistance train through
a little bit? It wasn't like he was like, but he wasn't trying to hack it. It wasn't like he was like, no, I'm going to make sure I don't lose. He's like, I want to kind of live, just kind of like follow it like somebody normal would, just to see what happened.
Because his calorie deficit was like just too much.
It was so high. Yeah, he lost muscle and he felt his energy went down. He's like, oh my God, I can barely do a couple sets of squats without gassing out. And he just didn't want to eat. My wife tried it for the same reason. She's like, let me try it. She tried a very low dose. And she's like, oh, it feels like the first trimester of pregnancy for me when she was like just repelled by food. I'm like, this is crazy. Now, not everybody has that experience, but I think that's very interesting. So yeah, I think the main mechanism, by the way, it improves insulin sensitivity. There seems to be some anti-inflammatory effects for the brain. There's some strange and interesting, this is where I'm paying attention, effects on hedonistic reward systems that seem to also affect people when it comes to like alcohol, cigarette smoke, other types of addictions, which is interesting. So that's an interesting thing I want to pay attention to. But when it comes to weight loss, a lot of it is, not all of it, by the way, because there's another interesting study I saw, but a lot of it has to do with the fact you just eat less.
And is it because of some satiety inducing mechanism, or is it because I've heard it makes you it just makes you feel like shit.
Makes you
it makes you nauseous.
Yeah, especially if you take too much. But it tells your body, your brain, you ate, so you're full. Don't eat anymore.
Wow.
You have all the energy you need. Yeah, but it does have. So here's. And I'm always careful when I communicate this because I don't want to sell it to a lot of people, because this is going to sell it, what I'm about to say. It has muscle sparing effects. Okay. So you'll lose muscle on it if you just cut your calories, don't exercise, don't strength train, don't eat high protein, because that's what'll happen regardless of what you do to preserve muscle from a chemical perspective. Even anabolic steroids won't protect you from doing that. But it does, all things being controlled and equal, seem to have a muscle sparing effect. There was one study that I went to the Peptide Congress in Las Vegas last year, actually spoke at it, Dr. Seed's event. I'll be at this one in Vegas again this year. And there was a gentleman that brought up a study on a triple agonist GLP-1 peptide. So you have semaglutide, tirzepatide, which is like a double agonist, I think, and then you have one called retatrutide, I think it's called, which is a triple agonist. And what they did, and I love the study, because up until this point, I'm like, it's a calorie deficit. You do a calorie deficit is going to get the same results. They did that. They took two groups of people, same calorie deficit, except this group was on the triple agonist, GLP-1. They lost half as much muscle. So they said, oh no, this shows that it's got a preserving effect, which I'm like, oh great. Now we're going to sell this thing to everybody.
Damn.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I would ever. I mean, obviously, I don't medically need it, but I'm in your camp where I feel I'm grateful that we have it. I mean, I do think it's a revolutionary drug, and for people for whom it functions as a fail-safe, who there are individuals who've tried everything, and maybe this person lives in an area where it's hard to come by whole satiety-inducing foods, as easily as it is for you and I. And for that person, I mean, this is something that's going to help ward off potentially type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease. There's data on that. Cardiovascular events, cancer, maybe even Alzheimer's. We're starting to see data, looking at that, like longer term health outcomes in the brain health sphere.
That might be that are independent of the reduction in caloric intake and stuff like that. There's some interesting effects that they're starting to find. Its effects on autoimmune issues. There's some interesting data coming out. Lots of anecdotes. So when you talk to, like, I've had a few doctors and specialists who work with people over years, and they're like, psoriasis reduction and rheumatoid arthritis reduction. There's some studies now being done to look at its effects on autoimmune issues. I think as a tool, it could be very powerful used for the right people. I would love to see. And the doctors that I interview on the show, this is what they do. Like, you're going to work with me. I'm going to put you on a peptide, on this peptide. I'm also going to you also need to tell me, make sure you strength train, and we're going to make sure you hit your protein intake or use essential amino acids in conjunction. And this is the protocol, not just here's your dose and then, I'll see you in a couple months and see what's happening.
Did you see that Super Bowl ad that everybody was talking about? It was for one of these direct-to-consumer pharmaceutical companies. I think it was like Hims or something.
Oh, I know who they are.
Like that, yeah. And the ad, basically, the first half of the ad presented the problem of obesity in America. Just the overconsumption and the excess and the abundance and how it's driving all of these health problems. Obesity being probably the most obvious one. So the first half of the ad was like actually really good, and was like, oh my God, this is did like RFK create this ad? It was like it felt really empowering and anthemic. And then the last half of the ad, it was like, and the solution is we're offering GLP-1 agonists cheaper than everybody else. And, and I think a lot of people were really upset by it because it presented the problem. It had this, I mean, obviously it was an ad. It was paid for by a for-profit company. So it's like, I'm not going to fault them necessarily, but it presented the problem in such a clear way, and then it pointed to the solution being
This one thing.
Like more shots, more drugs.
Yeah. No, you know what's funny about this?
Very disappointing.
You know what's interesting is, by the way, I'll just tell people, caution the people, remember the industry this is coming from. We're still dealing with the pharmaceutical industry, okay? And they don't necessarily have the best record of, being honest and, and really trying to help people in substantial ways or in ways that are really support longevity.
They profit off disease.
Yeah. So remember that. That doesn't mean they don't have solutions for issues.
Right.
You just got to be cautious. But what's interesting to me is the processed food industry. So if we're looking at if I were to name two of the top most influential industries in like government policy that kind of intertwines with regulations and does things that are a little shady to say the least, it would be the pharmaceutical industry and the processed food industry. Like processed food industry had heavily influenced our food pyramid and what's healthy, what's not healthy, and all that stuff, right? How much cholesterol is bad or good or whatever. But also the pharmaceutical industry is a part of that. So you get these two like megalith kind of industries where I'm like, I'm a little skeptical with you guys, right? And for the first time ever, the pharmaceutical industry has come out with a product that is threatening the food. In fact, stock prices of a lot of these processed food companies are dropping because people on GLP-1s are eating less of their foods, and they're actually starting to panic. What do we do? Oh no, this is weird. And so we're going to see two propaganda machines start to compete and fight. And it's really funny to see the food industry come out with GLP-1 diet foods.
I haven't seen this.
Oh yeah, like foods and snacks that are going to help you with this. They're starting to talk about that. And also, I don't know how true this is, but there was an article, I think it was the New York Times, came out with an article saying that these processed food companies are researching GLP-1 agonist blocking additives to put in their food. So let's put these things in our food that are going to make this thing that you have not work, so you can eat more of our stuff. I don't know how true that is, but I would believe it. If somebody said that they're doing this, I'd say, yeah, that sounds like
that is. I mean, that to me, just at first glance sounds so dangerous because what they're trying to do. I mean, ultra processed foods are already minimally satiating. That's part of the milieu that makes them so obesogenic, so obesity promoting, right? So GLP-1 agonist drugs increase just the overall satiety of your food. Yeah. And so what are these foods? Like even less?
Yeah. Like
they're marketing themselves as being even less satiating?
Yeah. It was, I read, I don't know how true it is, but I've been seeing this communication on social media. And I wouldn't put it past them. This is the most threatening thing to the processed food industry that they've ever seen. They've never felt this scared. In fact, obesity rates are slowing down. The growth of obesity is slowing down in the U.S. And it's too early to tell why. Some speculation is we've hit the limit. Some other speculation is like it's GLP-1s.
Are they that ubiquitous? Like I have no idea actually the proportion of people that are actually on them.
Is it 2 or 3 out of every American might be on them already? If I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong. I might be wrong with that.
That sounds so high.
It sounds high. I might be wrong. I would tell you this much. I would bet a lot, unless some crazy data comes out, shows some crazy. Maybe look it up.
Yeah, let's ask ChatGPT.
I would bet that 7 out of 10 Americans will probably be on one in the next 10 years. That's what I'll say. 6 or 7 out of 10 Americans will probably be on one in the next 10 years.
Let's see if ChatGPT has any answers for us. So I asked, what proportion of Americans are on GLP-1 agonist drugs? As of May 2024, approximately 12% of U.S. adults have used GLP-1 receptor agonist medications, with 6% currently taking them. Yeah.
Okay. So total 1 out of every 10 or maybe.
But it's still, obviously
that's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. Yeah.
And in a very short period of time.
We have 350 million people in this country, right? And
so 35 million.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Already. I bet you it's going to go. I mean, it's going to go so high. They're going to be giving these to everybody. That's what I think.
Wild.
I know. You know what? For I'll tell you what. Here's the good news on that. I think it's going to increase the awareness around needing a strength training coach or an exercise coach or trainer. I think it's going to increase the awareness around the importance of protein. I think there could be some potential positives because of that, for sure.
Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.